Hi, folks. Rob Potter here, the Victory of Light podcast, TV show. I'm very honored to have two of my guests this year who are coming to the Mount Shasta Summer Conference, Hierarchy of Light, come together. Through these tumultuous times that we're facing in the world today, there's nothing more important than the light, and to have hope and faith that the hierarchy of light, that the ascended masters, the truth of God, and that the angels do forever attend us. And I'm very honored to have two very people who are close to the ascended master Saint Germain. The first is Dr. Scott Warner, who's had some personal experiences and miracles revolving some of his contacts. I met him in Maui in 2014 or 15, and boy, what a powerful gentleman and a speaker. And Maureen St. Germain, I've recently come close to through my association at SciSpy TV. And of course, literally her last name is St. Germain. She's moving to another Vortex site, very closely related to Mount Shasta in Sedona. She's in that process now. So I'd like to welcome you both to the show. How are you doing, Maureen? Thank you for coming on.
Thank you. I'm doing really well, and I appreciate the opportunity to share the information. And I have a big love of Saint Germain, a big connection with him. And I was actually told to make my name Saint Germain, but get this, when I was 11 and I was being confirmed, I could not find a name. And the nuns were, kind of like they do, bearing down. And I told them I wasn't going to come up with a name till I came up with a name. And then the name Saint Germain popped in my head. And then there's a backstory, which I will tell you in a little bit.
Wow, that's amazing. Scott, I know you well. I'm gonna have you introduce yourself. I realize I have my air conditioning on. It's gonna be making a buzzing sound throughout the thing, so I'm gonna mute and I'm gonna go turn that puppy off.
Well, and I'll just kind of tell everybody who I am. I'm a previous medical doctor. I prayed for the best herbalist on the planet to come teach me about the herbs. And this guy showed up. He went by a different name, but he stayed with me for 4 years, taught me all about the herbs. And he said, if you'll open an herb store and bring the people in that want to use the herbs rather than medications, I'll teach you about the herbs. And he'd tell me about the origin and why it was put on the earth and all of this different stuff about each herb. And then he taught me about homeopathics and about crystal therapies and all kinds of stuff. And he stayed with me for 4 years. When he left, I read a book called Saint Germain and Alchemy, and there was a picture in there, and that was this guy who had been with me for the past 4 years. This was back 96 through 2000, 2001. And, that's my experience with St. Germain, but he appears to me all the time. He comes back into my life, even calls me on the phone occasionally.
Really? Wow.
Yeah,
That
I've had Saint Germain appear to me as well, and also El Moria, and a number of other ascended masters, but I never had anybody stay with me. Although one time an ascended master jumped in my cat because I'll just use the word, I was lollygagging on what I needed to be doing. Got
wow, that's
my
amazing.
attention.
So here's Ascended Master Amoria. Exciting thing, folks. Another friend of mine who's my kind of superstar mentor, teacher, guide, master, Dr. Raymond Keller. He doesn't like it when I do that, but he
Oh, we
lived
love
on Venus.
Raymond Keller.
Yeah, he lived on Venus for 2.5 months, and on the after the first day being there, he went over and met the Ascended Master Saint Germain, and asked if he could look at the Akashic record. So I said, "What was it like?" He said, "Wonderment and awe." He had this. When the beings reach these levels, they have this radiant light, this golden light, this presence around them. Scott, I think I'd like to start with you. First time ever heard you had a phone call for Saint Germain. I did have a phone call from the space people when Gabriel Green called me when I was about 23, and he said, "Rob, the Ascended Master Hilarion is sending a teacher for you," and some other people have been at Gabe's house when he gets a call from outer space, and I hung up the phone from him, and there was an echo or the phone. I'm sorry, the phone rang like a fire alarm. I was in a TikTok in Palm Springs, below Yucca Valley and Giant Rock, there where I was working in Palm Springs as a massage therapist, and people were like inside the store, in the parking lot, across the street, the other side. They were like, "Pick it up, dude. That's obnoxious." So I picked it up, and it went whoosh, wah, wah. It kind of had this sound, and I recognized that from Gabe had played for me one of the recordings when they had called him. They actually left a message for him, and so I do know that the extra dimensionals do like to cement things with a physical thing. Please tell us about that amazing call from Saint Germain.
Well, it's kind of interesting. Uh, since he came and worked in the herb store that I put in, he was calling me all the time, on an old cell phone, and he even showed it to me and all this. But in 2014, when I met you, he actually gave me your number, and that's how we met. And he gave me Corey Good's number, James Gilliland's number. Oh God, who was the other guy? Stephen Greer. And so he told me to go meet these people. And I met James Gilliland over at Baby Beach there in Maui. We go swimming every afternoon after I wrote my little chapter in the book. He would have me go play, because he says, you humans, you need to not be all work and no fun, because you'll live a lot longer if you play more.
That's probably very true. Now, he worked for you in a store. Did he look like the image, or did he have a younger appearance or anything like that?
Well, the interesting thing, when he was with me there, he looked like he was about 56 years old. He had gray hair and a gray beard, white hair actually. And when I met him again in 2014, he looked like he was about 30 years old. So, they just kind of present themselves as, the teachers they are. And, he was an older man, and I always respect older people because they have more knowledge and wisdom. And
Well, thank you
so,
so much. So I think that, I want to buttress that with Dr. Raymond Keller's coming out with a very special book. I've mentioned this several times. I cannot talk about it until the conference. It's going to be a very amazing thing. But one of the things is Jesus used to appear as a child, or much younger. They wouldn't recognize him in many instances. So there is this transfiguration or morphication, whatever you want to call it, in their presentations. And of course, being seventh dimensional ascended master from the pleroma, they do have that ability. Maureen, so tell us what's up today.
Well, today for me personally, I'm getting ready to move into a new property, and I was blessed by one of my students coming to me and saying, "You need to start a school in Sedona." And then she was told in her meditations to tell me this, but she was also told to give me a sum of money, and it was substantial. And she did that also. So then I had to act. So
Wonderful.
I'm moving my headquarters, and we're going to have a physical school as well. And I work with the Ascended Master Werner and St. Germain, Dwal Kul, and the Great Divine Director. And then I also work with the space beings. I've had a Pleiadian ship captain come through me, and also the Syrian starship group has come through me. And they always have such profound messages. One of the most powerful messages that I ever received was from Sanat Kumara, and it's in the book Waking Up in 5D. And I'll just take a tiny little snippet. What he said, we were talking, I was teaching this group in Hong Kong why there's no more karma, and how to address that. If there's no more karma, what does that mean? And I was told this back in 95. And at the time, I thought to myself, whoa, that's interesting. I wonder how that's going to work out. I didn't know, what it meant. And then I told a couple of Buddhist friends who were also students of mine, and they had a cow, and considering they're Buddhist, that was a big deal. Of course, I'm making a little joke here, but they did not receive that information well. And they said to me, well, how can that be? And I said, I don't know. I haven't figured it out. I just know it. So here's what Sanat Kumara said. He said, the game is over, referring to the 3D game. He then said, the game will end when there are no more players. And then he said, will you be the first to leave or the last? Pretty cool, huh? It makes it so much simpler if you get it. Yeah. Really boils it down, doesn't it?
And I received that same information from Jesus. He said that the reptilians were the ones messing with us in the fourth dimension. When we die, we go into the fourth dimension. And if we don't ascend, we stay in the fourth dimension and make plans to return into the third dimension. And the reptilians are the ones that convinced everybody we have karmic debt and we have to come back and repay it and suffer again. And that is not a true teaching. Karma is a teaching of the reptilians. And that's what I learned.
Very interesting. I will say that a lot of people are fine if I don't have karma. But what about that guy that sold 50K from me? Or what about that person who, hit my kid? But they're still looking for, judgment or punishment for those people. And when you allow yourself to think of what we're doing as a game, when you're playing a game of Monopoly, even when it's really intense, when the game's over, everybody goes have a cup of tea or a soda and chips, and everything's hunky-dory. So it kind of changes the tone to help people understand it's okay to walk away and not expect somebody else to be punished.
I agree. I think for me, again, Dr. Raymond Keller's new something coming out here does indicate that in his time in his travels from 12 to about 24 or something, that he did bring back the teachings of the Buddha, of their suffering, and there's a way out of suffering, and and then that the eightfold path, the four noble truths, and the eightfold path being the fourth noble truth. But there is consequences for our actions. Now, it's not like we think exactly, but I do believe that this indication that you and some other people have said that the karma is over, we have absolutely been misled through a process of this contract. And I recently found this out through my study of the hierarchy, and there's a dark hierarchy called the Robos as well, but that we would call that. But what took place was 16,000 years ago. The hierarchies dealt with the earth differently, probably a lot differently, in that they would be allowed to come to developing worlds and to interact with them. And they found that after all this time, many different groups were giving technology to worlds that were irresponsible. They were viewed as gods. It was interfering with the natural development of the worlds. And they had ended that contract probably based on one of the things that happened here on the Earth at this outpost on the radial arm of the galaxy. And now they no longer do that. They must remain behind the scenes. They can influence secretly, privately, behind the scenes, working with individuals, but they cannot land because the people will clamor for the technology, as they always do, and they can't reveal themselves until we establish this, as you said, Maureen, when the game is over, when people stop playing. So we have to leave the beastly nature and focus on the truth of God and the supremacy of love. That's what this conference, that's what the hierarchy of light is about. It's not about silver spaceships and spacesuits and the conspiracies of QAnon and what's this. That's all real. The reptilians and those disturbing aspects of the variety of the universe and the challenges we face, but it's about the supremacy of love and the truth of God. And so this is coming to us through many multidimensional beings. So right now, folks, I want to say my Mount Shasta Summer Conference is doing really good. So I'm going to let these speakers share their websites, where they're at, where you can keep in touch with them kind of early in this conversation. And I'm going to ask you not to go to my website. I'm not even going to mention it. The speakers actually are compensated by how many people use their link. So I'm going to ask you, I'm not going to pick sides here, but I'm going to ask you to choose, if you're a follower of one, I asked you to support one of these teachers for coming to the conference. So why don't you start off, Maureen, and tell us your website, how people can get in contact you, and exactly where that link is.
Okay. So the website is called MaureenSt.com. And on our website, we have what's called events, a menu that you can scroll down and go to events. And then the link to the conference is on that page. We offer a tremendous amount of services and training. And I won't get into it, but my MO is teacher. That's my job. And so I'm constantly offering training and understanding and insights. And a lot of times I'm being told things that I didn't know, just like Scott was talking about. And then I'm able to teach it to you. So it's my deep pleasure to work with you. And I look forward to meeting you in person.
Scott, lay it on us, brother.
My website is scottwerner.org, and my guy that does it, he hasn't even put up the link yet, and so I'm like, ah! But it's
Okay.
scottwerner.org, and I'm going to get on him this week, and it should be up, and just it'll have all the information for it and the link, and hopefully we'll get that going.
Oh my.
I've had to send out the link to people personally, but just go to scottwerner.org later this week, and it should be up.
Okay. You sound like me. I'm technologically challenged, and
Oh
you know,
my Lord.
but I really struggle. But I get this stuff going, and I just hunker down for hours. Anyway, so folks, for those of you who are not familiar with Dr. Scott Werner, besides being a messenger emissary for Saint Germain in the hierarchy, years ago he was a doctor. I still call him Doc or whatever, but he's officially not a doctor. Guess why? But this is changing right now, all over the world. We are in control, and there are actually actions taking place behind the scenes that you can't imagine that have given the power back to the people. He was a doctor working in a hospital. I don't want him to go through that whole story, but if he wants to, but I wanted to let you know that he was curing cancer. And I heard him talk at my conference, and watching his videos and stuff. And what happened was they kind of pressured him. The insurance company said, "Well, look, you're not really prescribing these medicines these people have." He says, "Well, they're getting cured without it." So of course that created a hullabaloo, a hub. He kind of didn't back down, and this is real, folks. You don't think it's true, but they literally at the end of the game they put him in jail without due process, without parole, and they said, "Look, we'll take away your license and you come out." So, he's a lover, not a fighter. He turned the other cheek and accepted that. And then I don't know what the time frame was, but a little bit later he thought, maybe I'll go to England and preach. And they got wind of it. He got a phone call and said, "Yeah, you're going to take a dirt nap. You're going to die if you go to England and continue to try and practice
Lord.
healing cancer." So that's kind of this history, Scott. If you want to start on a completely different subject, but I wanted people to know the integrity, the intensity of your knowledge, and the light that coming through you through that story. But you can share that, or you can go into other things, or you do have. He does have nutritional store. If you want to talk about that, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, the most important thing that is coming up is the ascension, and it's actually been moved up. I was first told by St. Germain it was going to happen in 2034, and it's been moved up 8 years because of all the damage the cabal is doing to the human race through these jabs. And so, it's interesting that now it's been moved up to 2026. So we've got literally 5 years to wake up enough humanity so that we have the 1%, so we can go through the monkey thing and wake the entire planet up and get us all ready for the ascension.
Yeah, he meant the 100th monkey, folks, where we all kind of get that big pulse there. So,
That's right.
yeah, so an exciting thing here. Lowell Thomas is up in town. He's been up here a couple weeks. I don't know. He may have gone now. They've shut down the mountain currently because there's fires. They're 15 miles away on the other side of the mountain. By the way, you've heard fires, folks. They're pretty far afield. We do have some days where it's a little smoky, but I actually have never smelled the wood smoke, and I don't see hardly any ashes because the prevailing winds are going in the other direction. We're praying that that's all going to be taken care of. We're going to have moderate weather, maybe even a little rainstorm before you come, and have a wonderful time here. But Lowell Johnson went inside the mountain last year, a normal guy, just a transcendental meditator, sitting on the mountain, and he's sitting in a location, and a breeze comes behind. His iPad goes off, and all of a sudden he feels a breeze. He turns around, and there's a tunnel. He stands up, and there's a guy in the back. The tunnel kind of went down. He couldn't tell. And he goes, that guy says, "Would you like to enter Telos?" And he went down for like a Gilligan's Island, a 4-hour tour. So the dimensions started getting rough. No. So he went into, it's literally a fifth dimension, that story he'll share at the conference. And then a couple of weeks ago, he went up again, finally made it back to his little spot there. And he was sitting there, and again the breeze came, and he turned around, and there was a woman there. I think it was Xiam Ma, an 8-foot woman dressed in a beautiful green gown, and she had a semi-private conversation with him. I did a little interview with him. He didn't reveal much about what happened there, but he is having contact, and he confirms. And I'm kind of like, how are we going from pond scum in the third dimension? How are we going to end peace? How are we going to create peace, have a completely representative governance, and all of the triggering of the emotional reactions that people have against each other, and all of the horrible things that people do to each other? We have to stop that. Basically, representative government, peace on earth, food, shelter, and clothing for all, and an equal distribution of the resources. Now, I know that the plans are for that, and I talk about how that's going to take place, but I kind of wonder, how are we going to get to this fifth dimension in a twinkling of an eye? Is that for some people? I felt that some people maybe will be taken up into not a rapture of a mass ascension, but into a removal from the planet for education, and a massive group that have kind of attained the fifth dimension would come down. Maureen, can you comment on, are we going from this third dimensional chaotic pond scum mud human death into fifth dimension? How is that going to take place? Is everyone going to vaporize like an atomic bomb? I mean, how's that?
The way it's going to happen, and I was told this over 20 years ago, 3 Earths, and they're all replicated. So you and I might be on all three. And one Earth is the crash and burn Earth. One Earth is the do-over Earth. And the third one is the ascending Earth. And the last two, the do-over Earth and the ascending Earth, are going to be allowed to interact. And what I was told recently was that the ability for the people to do the do-over Earth to interact with the ascending Earth might actually allow them to both ascend. Now, who's in the do-over Earth? The people who are in a narrow band of belief, whether it's their narrow band is Buddha or Jesus or whatever, and they're not accepting that consciousness is much grander than that. Good people who maybe aren't ready to consider the possibility of unconditional love for everyone. And then all of us are vacillating into 5D and then coming back. And I have proof of that because I've had experiences where stuff disappears. And then you come back and it's right where you left it. And you think to yourself, I turned this place inside out. It wasn't there. Why is it there now? And the answer is when you put it down, you were in this blissful 5D state. And then when you went to look for it, you're a little anxious. So that puts you back down in third dimension. And then you go back and you go into a place, okay, well, it's gone. I'm not going to worry about it anymore. I'm going to let go. And then you find it. So this has happened enough times with my clients that I will say everyone has been in 5D. Anybody who shows up at our events, they've already been 5D at least once, probably many times during the day. Because whenever you move into this blissful, unconditional love place, you move into 5D. And it isn't until you get knocked back out that you realize, oh, shoot, that person triggered me. Or I shouldn't have been so reactionary or something like that. But the blissful place people are at is prevalent a lot. And I see it everywhere I go. I bring in that 5D connection and I make a prayer that I will share with you now. And I'll also be sharing it with the event. And that is, I ask for a day of heaven on earth for me and everyone I come in contact with and everyone I am in contract with. And for you, Rob, because you're putting on this big event, I would claim all the time between now and then. So I'm calling in 6 weeks of heaven on earth for an amazing conference for everyone is coming, everyone that is presenting, and all the vendors and all the workers like that. And it's amazing what that does. There's a cute story, if I may just digress for 1 minute, where one of my students said to me that she had a family reunion to go to. And so she started asking for a week of heaven on earth for this family reunion that they're all going to stay at the same house. She said, but one of my sisters is a drama queen. And I was kind of worried about how she was going to, behave with the family. But I kept making that call, week of heaven on earth. She said, we had the best time. At the last minute, my drama queen sister called us and said she was checking herself into a detox facility. She wasn't coming.
There you go. I think also I would have recommended don't play Monopoly. People get upset in family gatherings. So with the the 5D situation there, you know, Lowell also said that it's going to happen, and I was asking him, how do you think that's going to happen? Now, for me, the fifth dimension, I kind of thought they were fourth dimension, but the way he described it, because there were no lights, it wasn't even lighting from the walls like the surround lighting, it was self-illuminated. That's the astral plane. That's where we go when we sleep. So we're all there, but how that's affecting us is, I think, we just don't remember that experience. So I think this veil is breaking down, and your I guess you call them your people who do your sessions are projecting in there and having those experiences. Raymond says that like the ascension can happen for individuals all the time. You don't have to go through the death experience, and I don't think that the reptilians can block you. He says you literally take up an agreement to go through a whole series of incarnations. So I'm not sure they actually control that, because you have to go through these experiences. You can ascend at any time. In one of the books he's releasing, there's a woman who became part of the angel force, and she went to, and I want to address this because you talked about the various earths. This is what brought this up, is that we're one earth, there are 7 parallel earths. So I was like, wow. He says, so how did this, in this book, on Venus they have a technology with the Metrons, it's called the Time Temple. And he says they monitor the monotonous flow of time. And I don't know how that is, and he might be able to answer that question, but they're looking for anomalies, and they noticed an anomaly on parallel Earth number 4 in about 1957 or 8. And they noticed this time anomaly, and they had the Confederation come in, and they decided to interject into the future to try to help that Earth. And they sent what's called an angel force from our parallel Earth, and I don't know if other Earths were involved or what, but this Earth was going to destroy itself through quark bombs, which they have to allow. They will not allow a planet to have a war like we would, because that could literally create an asteroid belt. That is never going to be allowed. But if we created it's still devastating, world-destroying, changing quark bombs, they would allow it because the Earth wouldn't be destroyed. We'd have to go through that self-imposed destruction. And what happened was is they removed people right before the cataclysm, like literally right before. They had fleets of ships, and as soon as the bombing started, they started distributing carpet bombing, what they call green fireballs, to remove the radiation. After the cataclysm started, their ships could go around and start picking up survivors as quickly as possible in the oceans, because the Earth has a natural axial flip every 5,000 years. It's kind of like, wow, that's a 5,000-foot tsunami that comes by a natural cycle. The Earth has a pretty big wobble, so that just occurs. And that's what they told Eisenhower, that if we continue our nuclear bombs, you're going to accelerate that. And that's why they went into underground bases. So on this other world, they precipitated the axial flip. And in the book Lady Columba, Venus Revelations, she talks about how she acts as an angel force with the Venusians. And they jump forward through 26 years and helping this Earth rebuild. It's a phenomenal book, but it shows you the sentinel and the guardianship and the love of the hierarchy of light to help us, and at the same time remain back. So Scott, same question for you. How do you see this fifth dimensional shift when you look around and you see what's going on and all of this stuff? I think probably some natural deaths or maybe some natural catastrophes, but is there going to be there and all of a sudden I'm not going to see my sister? How is that going to work? I mean, from our 3D perspective, or is it going to be gradual and we won't even notice it?
Well, as Jesus taught, there'll be the disappearance, the rapture of many of people ready to go through the ascension, and they will just go up. And the interesting thing is, like Maureen was talking about, things disappearing and reappearing, we're actually coming, every time we make a decision, we change our timeline. And if enough humans change the timeline, they change the planet. And so we've all got to bring ourselves into the oneness consciousness, and it will shift the entire world into the ascension process. And the great central sun, when we are at that point, will shoot out what we call a flare, a solar flare, but it'll actually come from the great central sun, and it will ignite the ascension and will go into the fifth dimension. This planet is going to become a small star, and the people who are in that fifth dimension will become light, love, and plasma, which is what our sun is made of. And the Earth will also become that. They've brought Planet X, Nibiru, whatever you want to call it, the new Earth has been brought in already. I've talked with secret space program people. They says that new Earth is in the opposite orbit on the opposite side of the sun from us. It's there. It's ready for those humans who make the decision not to go through the ascension, who are good people, who won't mismanage everything like we've done. And they'll be transported there by the secret space program when this occurs. And so there is a plan for everybody on the planet. The dark ones, they are going to be reabsorbed into the great central sun. If they don't repent, that's where they're going, and they'll be reabsorbed and will no longer exist as individual units or personalities, because their personalities are too diabolical.
I know we have all these. I'm learning, and I don't know. I mean, again, I asked the Queen of Venus. I said, what's the story with Nibiru? And in my book, she says, well, Raymond Keller already said that in his book. And Nibiru is it has, according to him, it has a 3,600 year orbit,
Yes.
and that when it does come in, it does have it does cause disruption. Uh, and Alon, the security chief, said he said it'll come. He goes, or no, that was the pole ship. They said it's 1,500 years away before it comes. So I'm not
Uh-huh.
sure about the secret space, or what I call the waste of space program, doing anything. Those guys have been traditionally Nazis, and they're a military mindset. But we'll see how that goes. I mean, you're getting information from places, and we all have to just kind of see what's going to happen. But the most important thing you said, I think, is the oneness of love and the consciousness that we have to um, achieve. And aside from the political stuff, I mean, Maureen, I'd like it to shift it to you now, and let's talk about the oneness of love and that process that people can inculcate within themselves for that to take place.
I think the easiest way is to make the decision. I'm part of the ascension, just to announce that. And then the next thing is to announce to yourself, I'm waking up in 5D when you go to bed. And when you get up, you claim that you're having a day of heaven on earth. Heaven on earth is the same as 5D. And when I was asked about this originally, I was actually taught this by my guides to say heaven on earth. And when people ask me, what is fifth dimension? I always say, well, whatever the traditional churches will teach us is heaven, that's 5D. So you get the idea that it's a place where people are loving all the time. And they're in a good place where they can talk with one another and communicate with one another and be with one another in a way that allows them to interact and have joyful experiences. And then, of course, in 5D, there is no wrong, because half of the choices, I call them the not guide choices, have fallen off the choice meter. So you're only going to think of good choices. And the way to understand this is to think about when someone comes to your house and you invite them in, you usually say to them, can I get you something to drink? Are you hungry? You kind of want to make them feel at home by making an offer of food or drink. You wouldn't dream of letting someone in your house and making them sit and not doing that. So that not doing that is the not God choice. That what you would normally do to be gracious and friendly and kind is you would invite them to have some kind of drink or food. And the reason it's hard for people to understand is because it doesn't mean if there's no darkness or there's no polarity, that there are no choices. What it means is all the choices that you have in front of you are ideal choices or good choices. Some are better than others, but it doesn't matter because we have free will. We'll still have free will in 5D.
This is true. I totally agree with what Maureen just said. We have to choose the light. I am the resurrection and the light. We come into the light. And every day we make choices. We just have to get up and bring heaven on earth, just like what Maureen's saying. Thank you, Maureen.
Would you like to expand on that, Scott?
Well, every day I wake up at 3 a.m. and I'm Ho'oponopono and Joe Biden, and I'm Ho'oponopono and Kamala Harris. I'm just literally, I can say they are my friends, because as you Ho'oponopono, the psychopath gets removed from their soul and they start becoming better people. Hugh Lin proved this in Hawaii. He Ho'oponopono these horrible criminal psychopaths, and they became good enough people. They had to close the prison down because they were all good people again. And so we have the power to telepathically communicate with people, even if they're a billion miles away in another universe. As we express our love, our forgiveness, our sorrow, and our gratitude, these energies can shift the consciousness. And as we humans wake up, we'll start Ho'oponoponoing everybody on the planet, and we will all make that shift together.
I'm going to give a little background. Um, My dad was on Oahu for when I moved there when I was like 8, so I'd spent a lot of time there. Ho'opono, it's kind of a little difficult to say, but it's basically the culture of living on an island. You all have to get along, and when you have a smaller culture like that, what used to happen was is in any of the tribes, whenever there was a problem between two people, and they would start to argue, the entire village would take the time to come and sit around this argument, and the group mind would work it out of what the differences were and what the problems were, so that in the end, they they would have the Hono Pono.
Ho'oponopono. Oh, remember,
Ho'oponopono.
Hawaiian is opono, but ho is the effort to bring light and love, and clear is what oponopono means.
And,
Clear, clear. So you're clearing the energy.
and there's three things that they say is go. And what are they, Scott?
Well, there's four things.
Four. Okay.
I love you. You start out with love. I love you. I'm sorry this is happening between us, and I'm sorry for my part in that. And I forgive you, and I forgive myself. And I am very grateful for the experience. And then you start over until you bring that love energy together. And so you continually do those four things. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you, and express your gratitude. And by doing that, it shifts the energy and the consciousness of both individuals. You can do this without even talking to them. You just do it
Yeah.
telepathically.
I think you're correct, and I think I'm not sure that's going to work with the current individuals you're trying to change, but
Oh, it does. Trust me.
they may
It
have a
does.
potential son. They're pretty entrancing at this point, but I don't know. I'm not the judge. Go ahead, Maureen.
I was just going to say, when you choose to do this over a difficult situation, you don't even have to be engaged. So you know how they say in acting, fake it till you make it. So when you start out with Ho'oponopono, you can do it without buying into it. I'm not saying I'm sorry. I'm not saying thank you, that kind of energy. But you just do it because you believe that it will work, and it changes you and the other person, as Scott was saying.
Yeah, I think the Venusians call it a cortic thalamic pause, where you go from you have an emotional brain mind. That's your hypothalamus. So you something happens, and with all the programs, your past experience, you're immediately. And I'm guilty of this quite often. I just go, "What?" It's just an immediate reaction, and you say something, and you feel attacked. Someone doesn't agree with you or believe with you, or you feel that they're doing something that's harmful to you or something. So you react. Now, there's one thing about getting angry and having an agreement and trying to be right, and there's another thing about mass murder where I think an arrest, an actual a physical, like if someone's raping someone, if someone was raping my family member or something, I'm sorry, I would probably. I just believe that as the Queen of Venus stabbed a guy and killed him in her first incarnation at the age of 18, when she was dressed as a man in the south of Brazil, that's kind of how she got to know the Pope. Was the bishop protected her, and the Pope says, "I want to meet this girl." The military wanted to hang her, and the Pope said, "No, she was being raped. I let her go. I absolve her of her sin." So there's two different levels there, but I definitely do believe that turning the other cheek and understanding and taking that pause and not reacting and just at all costs trying to remain calm and sending that loving vibration, and we have to be careful our own apperception. We think we're right, that we're right. I'm forgiving you. You don't have to forgive me. I'm not doing anything wrong. So there's a deeper level that goes beyond our apperception there. Go ahead, Maureen. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Well, I'm just laughing at what you said, because we think we haven't done anything wrong, but maybe we have. And that's what a Ho'oponopono is so effective. But truly, it is a process that people look up to, and they move into a place where they recognize that they don't have to know what's going to happen to the rapists or the thieves or the murderers. And what they need to know is, how are they going to react to what's in front of them? And, it sometimes is challenging, no question, but it's an opportunity when you move into this place of claiming, I'm waking up in 5D. I choose to be in 5D. I'm asking for a day of heaven on earth. Those things level up everyone around you. And when everyone around you is leveled up, there's less likely occurrence of drama, inappropriate action, hurtful stuff. So that's it.
I think both of you are right when you talk about the unity consciousness. I think that as we achieve that and realize that our brother and our sisters, and if we all treat each other as family and children of God, we can disagree. We can have disagreements, but when we look at the situation in the world with all the stress and the fear and the programming that's going on for death and destruction, people are becoming polarized. And my God, I mean, my own family members, I'm not gonna, some of us are kind of apolitical, but they're people are very, one's Republican or one's Democrat, and my friends are the same way. They're very emotionally, hostily polarized. It's not about the politics. It's not about the politician. That's the dark force, the beastly nature that's sent to divide you amongst your fellow man.
Right. Dividing. Mhm.
We're going to have to come together and find something new. Scott, why don't you talk about some ideas or something that you see, or how people can come together, not just at the conference, the hierarchy of light come together, but how people can come together and unify the various religions, rich and poor, black and white, Christian, Jew, Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist, Baha'i faith, whatever. What do you think is a guidepost that the golden rule, treating each other as we treat ourselves? How do you see this kind of simmering down and this acknowledgement by people to cooperate and to not focus on a political system, but to focus on the heart space and the love within?
Well, number one, it's like what Jesus taught. What is the greatest commandment? Was the Pharisees' question to him, trying to trip him up, because all of the commandments are important. But he said, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, thy mind, and thy soul. And the second is like unto it, love thy neighbor as thyself. But how can you love your neighbor until you love yourself? And so what I was told by Jesus is, we have to meditate and bring the love of God into our hearts, our minds, and our souls. And by doing that, we become the love of God. And then we can love our neighbor as ourself. Because until you bring God's love into yourself, you judge others, you make opinions, you separate yourself. But God's love is the unity consciousness. And that's all God is the love and organization of the universe and of nature. And so we need to bring this love into ourselves first, and then we can love our neighbor as ourselves. And as I always tell people, love is not sex and sex is not love. That's been the falsehood brought upon us by the media, the cabal and all those guys, because they've totally turned things upside down, just like David Icke talks about, and they've changed how the world has been thinking. And we've got to bring back the love of God into our consciousness, and that's how we move into the fifth dimension.
Beautifully
You know,
said. Thank you so much, Maureen. Take it.
the thing that strikes me as the difficulty is that people love themselves. They've been in difficult families, say, from families that were very critical, and they don't know how to love themselves. They don't even know that they don't love themselves. They would say they love themselves. I buy myself a nice car. I buy myself beautiful clothes. I love myself, but they don't love themselves. And the reason is because they hold out on themselves some judgment, some opinion that they're not good enough. And that translates to everybody else. So the comment is, whenever you find yourself critical of someone, ask yourself, am I critical about something? I can remember a conversation I had with my husband, and we were at dinner, and it was a beautiful restaurant. Everything was included. And I was telling him how upset I was that my dear friend had cut me off. And I love this person, and she was just super important to me. And I just was so frustrated that this is happening. And then I looked at him and I said, she thinks she's entitled. And as soon as I said it, I said, oh, I wonder what I feel entitled about. And I knew instantly. And it turned out in that case, in that moment, it was dessert. Okay. I feel entitled to dessert. It seems like a silly thing, but it's true. That sense of entitlement is there for all of us in some area of our life. I'm entitled to have this, you see. So when I decided that I was feeling entitled, and that's why I was unhappy with her feeling entitled, I chose, it was really funny, I didn't have dessert for like 3 years. And I did it as a way to show I don't need to be entitled. I don't need to have something that I think is fair, because life is not about fairness. Life is about love. And we're constantly being put in situations where we're being thwarted, we're being pushed to judge another, to be jealous of a neighbor, to be grabby about something. And what happens is that energy is coming from outside of us. A lot of people don't realize it, but that hateful competition energy is coming from outside of us. And it came from a matrix that was placed on humanity. So we're far more loving than we realize. And when we recognize that that's a matrix that we can slough off and push away by little things that we do to help us recognize our behaviors, then we're able to love ourselves, and then loving the neighbor is piece of cake.
Well, I think that's beautiful, and I think it's absolutely right on. Both of you hit the nail on the head there. So, let's see. We've got a few minutes. I mean, if you guys would like to end with anything about Saint Germain or anything, remember, folks, I'm going to have you. You're going to go to Scott's website in a day or so, or hopefully maybe you can get a hold of him today and pop that up. This will be up later today. If you want to support him on his little link there. And Maureen, so what is your email? What is your website again, Scott, for them all to just to
just scottwerner.org, not the .com, scottwerner.org, or you can do scottwernermd.com. But
okay, scottwerner.org is where it's going to be.
yes.
So that's WERNER. And Maureen?
MaureenSt.com. And then you go to events, and you're the first event on my list. So I will be promoting you that way. And I will also share this video when you put it up.
Oh, thank you so much.
I don't know if she's coming in and out on yours, but repeat her website.
Go ahead. It is coming. It is a little loud. I'm not sure if it was me either. Could you get close to the microphone and say your website once again, Maureen?
MaureenStGermain.com. MaureenStGermain.com. No dots, so you get to the .com.
Okay.
Go to the event page, and then our event with Rob is right there.
Okay, thank you. So Maureen, I think we've got about 6 minutes. Take 3 minutes and just if you want to give us a good message, or Mount Shasta is beautiful this year. We do have some smoke and stuff, but just finish us up with something beautiful and loving. It's been a wonderful conversation with both of you. Thank you so very much.
One of the things that I was reminded about is to tell people about the oils that came through Mary Magdalene, and that these blends help us heal our emotional wounds. And our emotional wounds hang on the body, and then they create growth, and we create more of the same wound. We attract more to us. And these blends that came through Mary Magdalene, I will have available. You can get them. And the other thing is we have other tools that will help people. So understand, do your own work on yourself, and the rest will follow. The rest will follow. So,
Wonderful. And Dr.
Yeah,
Scott.
I totally agree with that. We need to work on ourselves. And if you don't love yourself, Ho'oponopono yourself. Forgive everything within you that you've done and just Ho'oponopono it. I tell you, these things work. When the 12 big kahuna appeared to me, and the first teaching they gave me was the Ho'oponopono, it was like, oh, this must be really important. And so it was in my first book. And then I found out Hugh Lynn was already teaching about it. And you know, the thing we need to realize is we were created by God, and we were created through the love of God. And we were very loving beings when we were first created. And then we got further and further away from the love of God and shifted into this physicality or duality. And so what we need to do is shift back toward the love of God, and that will shift the whole consciousness of the planet, and it will follow, just like Maureen's talking about, and we will be in a heaven on earth, and it's a very delightful place, and so that's where we're headed. So let's get on board.
All right. I
I
think
want
that. Oh, go ahead.
to shout out to the Extended Masters. We have talked about them on this show, and Rob and all of us are devotees of the Ascended Masters, and we want you to know you're not alone. These beings of light are here to help us, and they've shown up to help us. And when you call upon them, they cannot deny you. So please know that if you have no other resource, you have the Ascended Masters in the angelic realm who stand at the ready to help us. And I'm so grateful to you, Rob, for the work you're doing to bring this information forward and to help people to have the opportunity to go and learn.
Yeah, the key is to call upon them. We can't just sit on our thumbs. We have to ask them for their help.
And another step there is we have to have that faith. We have to realize everything is not hard science, and if you can't see it, we lose the imagination, the understanding of the multidimensional realms of light. And Lowell Johnson, he said, I actually understood the fifth dimension when he did ayahuasca. And I don't recommend everyone goes into a psychedelic experience, but one of my earlier teachers from India, his name was Sarinjava Roy, he had an ashram on Haight and Waller in 1966, which is near the Haight-Ashbury, where he was the guru that started the Love-Ins and all that. And he said the system will invert on itself, and that you have to. It's going to be literally an other dimensional experience. And he said for those who have kind of experienced in psychedelics the wavy hand and the motion, that's kind of the what do you call it, the cliche, but for it. But it's really about the sensing of the feelings and understanding that when things start to shift, you're going to see, you may be able to see into the angelic realms. You may be able to see spaceships. I've been with people and I go, you see that spaceship? And it's physical. And they go, no, where? And someone goes, I see it. It's right there. And someone else goes, where? So it's what your perception is, and we have to keep our mind and our hearts open for these great changes. And as the Queen says, keep loving your hearts, and savor each day that you're alive. And if we can, try to help one another as best that we can. So thank you both so very much. I'm going to share real quick here, I think just for the heck of it, the page you're going to go to when you click on one of their things. And don't worry, when you click on theirs, you're going to see a little discount for the summer conference. But if you just want to check it out here, you're going to see, oops, am I getting this up? There we go. So you're going to see, here's the page you're going to go to. You're going to get your tickets there. But I want you to read everything. I've actually been updating it. And I sent, there's going to be a message sent out to all the speakers too. I gave an update of what's happening. But look here, folks. You want a place to stay. All of these things are linked here for you to find out where to go and stay. There is a reggae festival in town. And actually my guest, and I don't expect you to leave my conference, but there's a reggae festival in town that you can go to at a discount on Friday and Saturday if you want to break out of the 9 to 9 speakers in 2 rooms inside and enjoy the mountain. Feel free. You're going to have to pick and choose what you want to do, but I just want to show you the amazing lineup of guests here. There's Raymond Keller with the 6-dimensional moon base commander Warren Raines, Alex Collier, you know, the Andromedan contactee who pretty much broke loose the reptilian thing. Laura Eisenhower, the sweetheart, myself. The Crystal Skull will be there again this year. Scott, he was fun, wasn't he? So he's going to be there. He'll be doing sessions. Celestine Starr is going to be an MC. Brad Olson, Sandra Michael, an old friend. And there's that guy, Lowell Johnson, who went inside the inner earth. Amazing, newly awakened, like from 0 to 5th dimension in like 4 hours. You know, he wasn't into UFOs or space people or ascended masters or anything. Next thing you know, he's walking around inside. This woman has contact with beings from the other side, converses with animals for real, and your parents or whoever, loved ones can come through. Michael Jaco, of course, he's famous. There she is, the beautiful Maureen St. Germain, Dr. Scott. Shakina Rose, this woman really embodies the 5th dimension, and Maureen knows her. She's really a tremendous energy. Tony Rodriguez, another secret space program guy, and there's the beautiful Suzanne Ross from Sci-Spy. And this guy is very well connected. I've known him way back in the day. He's had multiple contacts. He's kind of like me. He's a networker. Gabriel Green, his name's Frank Chile. And he's selected by extraterrestrials. He bought him out to the world through Jeff Rentz, and then Corey Good and Saul has written books. He's going to be doing a couple things. This is a local girl who does sound healing. Vivian Chavez, a hybrid Arcturian. It's pretty hard to get past my what the heck meter, and she's done it with some. So I test him a little bit, and then I feel that she's for real. Dennis Adams, a local man who has a wonderful healing capabilities. Lori Spagna, on fire, positive gal. And Brooks Agnew, the Inner Earth Explorer. And of course, this is Marie Valesco. I met her in Peru years ago with Louis on one of the excursions we took. And she sat me down and she showed me pictures with the guy she was with. He was standing there like this, and they were pointing. There was a spaceship landed on the ground. And she told him, go over and see it. Go over and see it. And he was like, no, that's close enough. So sometimes you want to get that experience, you don't. But she's had a lot of real experiences in Bolivia and Peru. And this is an amazing gentleman. He he's going to be doing a special sound thing. He's a kind of a scientist and incredibly in tuned into the sound, light, and color healing. And if you're interested to see the back door and the vendor space is there. So that's our little event. We're almost sold out, so I'm not really worried about it. But if you do get your tickets, once again, scottwerner.org or maureenstgermain.com. You guys, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
All right.
God bless everybody.
All right. God bless you all, folks. Thank you so very much for coming on the show today and joining us. Thank you.